Imagine a galaxy where myths and legends hold the key to uniting species from across the stars. In a universe driven by logic and technology, humanity's ancient stories spark a cosmic revolution, transforming the way civilizations see themselves and each other. From starship battles to the birth of new heroes, this is the thrilling journey where imagination becomes the most powerful force in the galaxy. Ready to explore the power of storytelling in deep space? Hit subscribe and let's dive into the adventure. Humanity's journey into space was born from a profound sense of curiosity and ambition that has been ingrained in human nature for millennia. Since the earliest days of human civilization, people have looked to the stars with wonder, asking fundamental questions about the universe. These questions, about the cosmos, the nature of life, and humanity's place within it, have sparked the desire to explore the unknown. The night sky, filled with distant stars, planets, and galaxies, has long been a source of fascination and inspiration. Early astronomers and philosophers speculated about the existence of other worlds and civilizations, often imagining life beyond Earth. This drive to explore and discover was not limited to ancient philosophers or poets. It was shared across cultures, driving technological advancements over the centuries. The invention of telescopes, the discovery of the laws of physics, and the development of powerful computing systems were all products of humanity's relentless pursuit of knowledge. As our understanding of the universe grew, so too did the ability to build tools capable of reaching beyond Earth's atmosphere. The technological marvels humanity developed, such as rockets, spacecraft, and satellites, allowed for the exploration of outer space, which had once seemed unreachable. By the 20th century, space exploration became a reality, with significant milestones such as the launch of the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, in 1957, and the first human spaceflight by Yuri Gagarin in 1961. These achievements marked the beginning of humanity's formal journey into the stars. However, even with these technological accomplishments, humanity's drive to explore was not only based on a thirst for knowledge or scientific progress. At its core, space exploration was motivated by the same deep curiosity that had fueled human exploration on Earth for centuries. Whether it was explorers crossing oceans or scientists seeking to understand the natural world, humanity's inherent desire to push boundaries and discover new realms continued to evolve as we set our sights on the stars. This curiosity was also linked to the concept of human expansion beyond Earth, driven by the idea that humanity could achieve greatness through exploration. It was a desire to prove that humans could overcome the limitations of their home planet and venture out into the universe, driven by the same wonder that had inspired ancient astronomers to dream of the stars. With the development of space exploration, humanity was not only discovering the mechanics of the universe, but also grappling with existential questions about our place in the grand scheme of things. As we ventured deeper into space, the mysteries of the cosmos would unfold in ways that would challenge our perceptions of reality and prompt new ways of thinking about humanity's role in a vast and interconnected universe. The second turning point in this narrative takes place when alien civilizations, specifically the Valerian, make contact with humanity's myths and legends. While humanity had long viewed its myths and stories as an intrinsic part of culture, history, and identity, these tales, rich in gods, heroes, monsters, and moral lessons, hold a different significance for more technologically advanced alien species. The Valerian, an ancient and highly intelligent species from a distant solar system, had mastered science and technology to a degree far beyond humanity's capabilities. Their civilization had flourished for thousands of years, focusing on understanding the mechanics of the universe, both at the subatomic and cosmic levels, but they had never developed a tradition of storytelling in the same way that humans had. When the Valerian first encountered Earth, they were not particularly interested in humanity's scientific or technological achievements. Instead, they found themselves drawn to Earth's rich cultural history, particularly the ancient myths and legends passed down through generations. This discovery was not a result of a direct exchange of knowledge, but rather the Valerian came across Earth's artifacts, ancient texts, and oral traditions. These stories were perceived by the Valerian as something deeply puzzling, Their society, focused on cold logic, reason, and data, had no place for emotional or imaginative narratives. They had never considered that such stories could hold any real meaning beyond primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena. Initially, the Valerian believed these human myths to be mere superstition, primitive tales designed to make sense of an otherwise incomprehensible world. The myths of gods, monsters, and cosmic battles seemed, at first, to be fabrications with no real basis in reality. However, as they began to study these myths more deeply, something unexpected occurred. The Valerian began to see patterns emerging from the tales, patterns that transcended the human experience. They started recognizing universal themes within human stories: creation, destruction, love, loss, redemption, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness. These themes, despite being expressed through very human lenses, resonated with the Valerian in ways they had never anticipated. What began as mere curiosity about humanity's stories turned into a profound realization for the Valerian. They began to recognize that these myths were not simply fanciful or irrelevant. Instead, they were expressions of something deeper, something primal about the human spirit. The myths were not just attempts to explain the world, but were reflections of the very human condition, with its complex range of emotions, struggles, and hopes. These stories encapsulated the trials of the human experience, from the challenges of inner darkness and conflict to the moments of great triumph and transcendence. The Valerian, with their cold and logical worldview, were stunned by the realization that humans had a unique capacity to understand and express profound truths about existence through these imaginative stories. This revelation prompted a major shift in how the Valerian viewed not only human culture, but also the role of storytelling in the broader cosmos. They began to appreciate that stories were more than just entertainment or explanations for the unknown. They were windows into the soul of a species, offering insights into the struggles, joys, and emotional landscapes that defined human existence. For the Valerian, this was a transformative moment, a recognition that there was more to understanding the universe than cold data and logic. There was a place for imagination, for wonder, and for the narratives that helped sentient beings understand the mysteries of existence on an emotional and spiritual level. In this way, the discovery of humanity's myths and legends by the Valerian marked the beginning of a new phase in interspecies interaction. The Valerian were no longer focused solely on technological advancements or scientific knowledge. They had uncovered a new avenue of exploration in the form of storytelling. This discovery would later go on to inspire other species across the galaxy, igniting a cultural revolution in the way civilizations communicated, understood each other, and ultimately connected on a deeper, more emotional level. As the Valerian began to deeply study and reflect upon humanity's myths, their understanding of storytelling underwent a profound transformation. Initially, the Valerian viewed stories, particularly human myths, through the lens of their own advanced, rational civilization. With their scientific and technological achievements, they prided themselves on the ability to comprehend the universe through objective, empirical knowledge. Their society was structured around data, logic, and algorithms, precise tools that provided clear, definitive answers to the complexities of existence. To them, the idea of storytelling as humans experienced it seemed foreign, unnecessary, and even frivolous. However, as they immersed themselves further in the study of human myths, something unexpected began to happen. The Valerian, who had once dismissed myths as primitive or illogical, began to recognize an emotional depth within these narratives that could not be explained away by facts or data alone. For the first time, they acknowledged that these human stories were not just fanciful ideas or childish fairy tales. They were reflections of the human condition, intimate expressions of emotions, struggles, and triumphs that resonated on a deeply universal level. The more they studied these stories, the more the Valerian began to realize that their own culture, with its reliance on cold logic, had been missing something essential: the emotional and imaginative aspects of existence. The myths of ancient Earth, From the tales of gods and legendary heroes to the monsters and epic struggles, began to stir something profound within the Valerian. They saw that these stories, while rooted in human culture, reflected timeless themes. Humanity's quest for meaning, the battle between good and evil, the desire for redemption, and the pursuit of love and justice. The universal struggles portrayed in human mythology mirrored the same themes found in many other sentient species cultures. As the Valerian reflected more on these narratives, they started to understand that storytelling had an emotional and spiritual function that could not be captured in pure data alone. What the Valerian came to understand, in essence, was that human myths were an essential tool for navigating the complexities of existence. These stories weren't simply for entertainment. They were a means by which humans explored their inner worlds, the struggles of their species, and their understanding of the universe. They saw the power of storytelling to capture the most profound aspects of life, the emotional highs and lows, the moral dilemmas, and the relationships that shaped human history. The Valerian, a species that had once revered logic over imagination, now realized that storytelling could provide a unique kind of knowledge. It could communicate truths that science alone could never capture, offering insights into the human heart and mind that no data-driven analysis could achieve. This shift in the Valerian perspective had a profound impact on their culture. As they began to embrace the concept of storytelling, they integrated it into their own civilization. They started to see storytelling as a vital method of communication, not just to preserve history or explain phenomena, but to share experiences, emotions, and values. Storytelling became an avenue for the Valerian to connect with the deeper, more abstract aspects of life, something that their focus on logic had previously overlooked. This newfound appreciation for narrative allowed them to engage with other civilizations in ways that went beyond the exchange of raw information. Instead, they could now communicate shared experiences, foster empathy, and find common ground in the human emotions encapsulated in stories. In this way, the Valorians' changing perspective on storytelling marked a significant cultural evolution. The rigid, logic-driven approach that had defined their civilization began to expand. They began to understand that stories were a way to communicate profound truths that went beyond the physical and the logical. It was a realization that storytelling was not just an art, it was a form of wisdom in itself. And as the Valerian embraced this shift, they began to see the potential for storytelling to transform their relationships with other species, offering a new language that could unite beings of all types, regardless of their history, culture, or technology. As the Valerian began to embrace the power and importance of human myths, they saw an opportunity to share these stories with other civilizations across the galaxy. The Valerian, initially focused on their own advanced technology and scientific progress, now recognized that storytelling could be a universal language that transcended the limitations of data and logic. This newfound appreciation for narrative had a profound impact on their approach to interspecies relations. They realized that sharing these myths could bridge cultural divides, fostering connections and empathy between species that had never communicated in such a way before. The Valerian began by introducing human myths to other advanced species they had encountered, initially with skepticism. Many of these civilizations had long abandoned the idea of storytelling, seeing it as an outdated or irrelevant practice in their highly developed societies. They had instead prioritized technology, rational thought, and scientific progress, viewing storytelling as little more than a nostalgic or quaint activity with no place in a world governed by logic and reason. The introduction of human myths, therefore, was met with a mix of intrigue and skepticism, as these species wondered how such tales could possibly contribute to their understanding of the universe. Despite their initial resistance, these species began to engage with the myths more deeply. They found themselves captivated by the emotional richness and complexity embedded in the stories. The universal themes of love, loss, heroism, and the battle between good and evil resonated with them on an emotional level, despite their vastly different biological and cultural backgrounds. Some species, like the Valerian, initially dismissed these stories as irrational, But they soon realized that myths contained profound insights into the shared struggles and triumphs that defined all sentient beings, regardless of their form or origin. As the Valerians shared the human myths across the galaxy, different civilizations began to incorporate elements of these stories into their own cultural narratives. The myths transcended their origins, transforming into shared cultural symbols that connected species in ways that were previously unimaginable. One of the first species to embrace this new cultural art was the Araney, an insectoid race from the outer edges of the galaxy. The Araney had traditionally communicated through complex pheromones and color patterns, a beautiful but limited form of expression. When introduced to human myths, they were struck by the emotional depth of the stories. They saw storytelling as a means of expressing complex thoughts and emotions that their usual forms of communication could not convey. In time, the Araney adapted human myths, blending them with their own traditions, and created the first Araney epic, a story combining human mythology with their own rich, visual form of communication. Other civilizations, like the Nidhan, an amphibious species with a deep connection to water, began to integrate human myths into their aquatic cultures. They created their own versions of human stories, adapting them to fit their oceanic world. The Nidhan, for example, told tales of underwater heroes battling monstrous sea creatures, akin to the human legends of heroes slaying dragons. In a similar way, the Visean, an energy-based species with no physical form, adapted human myths by projecting holograms that told stories of gods, demons, love, and redemption. These adaptations allowed each species to connect with human mythology in ways that felt relevant and personal to their own cultural experiences. The spread of storytelling across the galaxy also led to the creation of entirely new forms of narrative. As more and more species began to embrace the idea of storytelling, they brought their own unique perspectives and experiences into the fold. This created a rich tapestry of interconnected narratives that reflected the diversity of the galaxy. It also became a means of building relationships and fostering peace. The myths, once confined to the realm of human history and culture, now formed the foundation of interspecies dialogue. These stories of gods, heroes, and monsters provided a common language, one that transcended species and cultures. They allowed civilizations to explore shared emotions and universal themes, laying the groundwork for greater understanding and empathy between them. The transformative effects of storytelling were profound. Species that had once viewed storytelling as irrelevant or unnecessary began to realize its significance as a tool for building relationships, resolving conflicts, and creating a deeper understanding of one another. The myths shared between species were no longer just entertaining tales. They were the foundation for a new kind of communication, one that emphasized emotional connection, mutual respect, and a deeper understanding of the struggles and triumphs that defined all sentient beings. As the Valerian continued to spread human myths across the galaxy, they were not only sharing stories. They were transforming the way civilizations interacted with each other, using storytelling as a force for unity and peace. While the idea of storytelling gradually gained acceptance across many civilizations in the galaxy, there were significant challenges and resistance from certain species. These species, often deeply rooted in their own cultural traditions and focused primarily on scientific advancements, viewed storytelling as frivolous and unimportant. In their eyes, storytelling was a luxury, a pursuit of emotional indulgence that had no place in the practical, data-driven world they had built. Many of these civilizations prided themselves on their achievements in science, logic, and technology, believing that these were the only legitimate ways to understand and navigate the universe. The resistance to storytelling was particularly pronounced among species that had long abandoned the tradition of myth-making in favor of pragmatic pursuits. These species had evolved in environments where the pursuit of knowledge was strictly empirical. Their societies were built around logic, mathematical precision, and the scientific method. As a result, they found it difficult to appreciate the value of stories that could not be supported by hard evidence or validated through data. To them, the idea of sharing narratives that were based on imagination, symbolism, or emotional experience seemed pointless and inefficient. They believed that focusing on such abstract concepts was a distraction from the real business of understanding the cosmos. Furthermore, many of these species had highly structured, organized societies where any form of communication had to serve a specific, practical purpose. Storytelling, with its open-ended nature and reliance on creative expression, was seen as too subjective, unreliable, and unproductive. In their view, stories could not contribute to technological progress or the pursuit of knowledge. As a result, they resisted the spread of human myths, seeing them as a waste of time and a deviation from the clear, structured approach that had served them well in their own development. Despite this initial resistance, the Valerian and other species who had embraced storytelling continued their efforts to spread the practice across the galaxy. They faced significant obstacles in changing the deeply ingrained attitudes of these resistant species. The Valerian, having initially been skeptical themselves, were well aware of the difficulties in convincing others of the value of storytelling. Yet they persisted, emphasizing the emotional and psychological benefits of engaging with myths and demonstrating how storytelling could be a powerful tool for building empathy, connection, and understanding. Over time, the resistant species began to recognize that storytelling was not in opposition to science and reason, but could complement it in meaningful ways. They began to understand that myths, while not grounded in empirical evidence, held profound insights into the nature of existence, the human condition, and the shared experiences of sentient beings. These stories offered a unique perspective on the struggles and triumphs that transcended the limitations of data and logic. They explored the realms of emotion, imagination, and spirituality, dimensions that were often overlooked by purely scientific approaches to understanding the universe. For some species, the turning point came when they realized that storytelling could provide a deeper understanding of their own cultures and histories. Many species had long relied on cold, objective records of their past, but these records lacked the emotional depth and meaning that could be conveyed through stories. By embracing the human myths and legends, these civilizations began to explore their own identities in new and meaningful ways. They discovered that stories could help them process their own struggles, triumphs, and aspirations. They could explore the complexities of existence, the internal conflicts of their species, and the ways in which they related to the wider universe. The gradual acceptance of storytelling among resistant species marked a pivotal moment in the galaxy's cultural evolution. These species began to see that storytelling was not merely about engaging with the past or dwelling on the fantastical. It was about embracing the rich emotional and spiritual dimensions of life, dimensions that could not be fully understood through science and logic alone. It was about exploring the mysteries of existence and human nature in ways that connected individuals, cultures, and civilizations on a profound level. While the initial resistance to storytelling was strong, it eventually gave way to a broader cultural shift. As more and more species began to recognize the value of myths and legends, storytelling became an integral part of their cultural fabric. It helped to bridge the emotional and spiritual gaps that had long existed between different civilizations. The challenge of overcoming resistance ultimately proved to be an essential step in the galaxy's journey toward unity and mutual understanding. Through storytelling, the galaxy began to forge new relationships, resolve conflicts, and build a deeper appreciation for the shared human experience, despite the vast diversity of sentient beings. The introduction of human myths and storytelling to the galaxy marked the beginning of a profound cultural transformation. As storytelling spread from one civilization to another, it was not merely adopted as a passive form of entertainment or communication, but as a transformative tool that shaped the way species viewed their own cultures and connected with each other. Initially met with skepticism or indifference by certain species, the emotional depth and symbolic richness of human myths began to resonate on a deeper level, leading to their integration into the cultural fabric of many civilizations across the galaxy. One of the most remarkable aspects of this transformation was the way in which species from entirely different backgrounds adapted human myths into their own unique cultural frameworks. For example, the Aranee, an insectoid race from the galaxy's outer reaches, were initially unaccustomed to the concept of storytelling in the way that humans and other species approached it. The Araney communicated primarily through pheromones and intricate patterns of color, a functional yet emotionless form of expression. However, when introduced to human myths, they found themselves captivated by the emotional complexity inherent in these stories. The myths spoke to something primal within them, something that transcended the limitations of their own communication system. Incorporating the human stories into their own traditions, the Araney blended their visual, pattern-based communication with the emotional narrative arcs of human mythology. They created their own epics, stories of heroes and villains, battles of good and evil, but with a unique twist that merged human mythic elements with Araney symbolism. This process of adaptation and hybridization allowed the Araney to express emotions and ideas that they had previously been unable to convey through their standard methods of communication. They could now explore complex themes such as sacrifice, love, and identity in a more nuanced and expressive way. Similarly, the Nidhan, an amphibious species deeply connected to the oceans of their homeworld, adapted human myths to fit their aquatic culture. Inspired by the stories of human heroes who fought mythical sea creatures like dragons and demons, the Nidhan created their own underwater epics. These tales often featured aquatic heroes battling massive, terrifying sea monsters, reflecting the same narrative themes found in human mythologies. These adaptations highlighted how storytelling could be molded to fit the unique characteristics and environments of different species, while still maintaining the universal emotional themes that resonated across cultures. One of the most striking examples of storytelling's evolution across species came from the Visean, an energy-based species that lacked a physical form. For the Visean, traditional forms of storytelling were impossible, as they had no tangible bodies through which to speak or gesture. However, they found a way to adapt human myths into a new form, light-based storytelling. Using their ability to manipulate light and energy, the Visean projected intricate holograms that conveyed the emotional depth and narrative complexity of the human myths. These holograms depicted stories of love, betrayal, and redemption, with vivid, radiant imagery that transcended the limits of physical space and form. The Vision's unique approach to storytelling allowed them to preserve the emotional essence of the human myths while making them accessible within their own sensory experience. As more species adopted and adapted human myths, storytelling began to spread throughout the galaxy, with each civilization adding its own spin, blending its own cultural elements, and discovering new ways to express the shared human experience. The myths of gods, heroes, and battles between light and darkness were universally compelling, and they became the foundation for the creation of new, hybrid stories that reflected the diversity of life across the galaxy. This blending of human myth with the unique cultural and biological traits of other species led to a vast tapestry of new narratives that unified civilizations in ways that were once unimaginable. The integration of storytelling into the cultural traditions of these species was not without its difficulties. Many had to confront their own cultural biases and limitations, particularly those that had long rejected emotions, imagination, and subjective experiences. For species that had built their societies on logic, reason, and empirical data, the concept of storytelling was initially viewed as antithetical to their values. However, as they began to see the transformative power of storytelling, they began to appreciate it not as a distraction, but as an essential aspect of the universe's complexity. These myths and stories offered insights into the mysteries of existence, the emotions that underlie all sentient life, and the collective struggles that define the sentient experience. Through the evolution of storytelling across species, the galaxy experienced a profound shift. Storytelling became more than just a form of communication. It became a means of exploring shared experiences and identities. The myths and stories helped species better understand themselves, their place in the universe, and their relationships with one another. As each species found ways to incorporate human myths into their own cultures, they learned to see the universe through new eyes, embracing the emotional and symbolic dimensions of life alongside their scientific and logical pursuits. This transformation ultimately led to greater unity and mutual respect among species, as storytelling created a new language of empathy and connection that transcended the boundaries of biology, culture, and even species. In the end, the spread of storytelling across the galaxy proved to be one of the most important cultural shifts in galactic history. It helped create common ground between civilizations that had once been divided by vast differences in biology, culture, and perspective. It brought species together in ways that no technological advancement or scientific breakthrough could ever achieve. Through storytelling, the galaxy learned to embrace the richness of imagination, the depth of emotion, and the shared struggles that bind all sentient beings together. As storytelling spread across the galaxy, it gradually evolved from a mere form of cultural expression to a powerful, unifying force that helped bridge the gap between disparate civilizations. In the vast expanse of space, where species could be as physically different as they were culturally, the ability to find common ground became essential for fostering peace, understanding, and cooperation. Human myths, with their timeless themes of struggle, hope, love, and redemption, provided the emotional and narrative framework that helped species understand one another on a profound level. Through storytelling, civilizations could communicate their shared experiences and deep-seated values, transcending their differences and discovering that, despite their unique perspectives, they were all part of a larger cosmic story. In this new era of galactic storytelling, the mythic narratives that were once confined to individual cultures began to transcend their origins, becoming universal symbols of the shared journey of sentient beings across the galaxy. For example, the stories of heroes overcoming great odds, gods engaging in epic battles with monsters, and the eternal conflict between light and darkness became common themes that resonated across species. These stories were no longer seen as isolated traditions, but as collective representations of the eternal human, and by extension, the sentient experience. These universal themes transcended the boundaries of space and species, giving rise to a new understanding of the galaxy itself, one where every sentient being had something valuable to contribute to the larger narrative. The spread of human myths across the galaxy played a key role in shaping how species interacted with one another, fostering a sense of shared identity and collective purpose. This was particularly important in a universe where many civilizations had previously been isolated from each other, either by vast distances or by long-standing conflicts. As different species began to appreciate the emotional depth and universal relevance of these myths, they found common ground that they could build upon, even in the face of their differences. The emotions encapsulated in the myths, joy, sorrow, fear, triumph, became the glue that held together the diverse races and cultures scattered across the stars. The realization that all species shared these fundamental emotions created a new framework for interspecies diplomacy, one rooted not just in politics or economics, but in the shared human and sentient condition. In a galaxy that had previously been fractured by suspicion, rivalry, and war, storytelling provided a means of finding mutual respect. For species that had once seen each other as threats or rivals, the power of myth created a new narrative of cooperation. This was particularly significant for species that had previously been adversaries, such as the insectoid Arany and the amphibious Nidhan. These two species, although biologically and culturally distinct, found themselves drawn together by their mutual appreciation of the emotional depth and universality of human myths. By incorporating human stories into their own cultural practices, they began to see each other not as enemies, but as fellow travelers in the same universal journey. Storytelling helped shift the focus from their differences to the shared struggles, triumphs, and aspirations that were common to all sentient beings. In addition to fostering cooperation between species, storytelling also became a vital tool for resolving conflicts and building peace. When species engaged in storytelling, they were not just sharing their own histories or emotions. They were also learning to see the world through the eyes of others. The emotional narratives embedded in the myths helped civilizations develop empathy for one another, fostering understanding and compassion. Through storytelling, species could work through their differences, find common ground, and forge alliances based on shared ideals rather than fear or suspicion. In this way, storytelling became a cornerstone of diplomatic efforts across the galaxy, helping to dissolve old hostilities and creating a platform for peaceful resolution. The role of storytelling in promoting galactic peace was further exemplified by the creation of new myths. As species from different corners of the galaxy embraced the power of narrative, they began to craft new stories that reflected their evolving relationships and alliances. These new myths, born from a collaborative exchange of ideas, were not just relics of the past, but living stories that evolved with each new encounter, each new alliance, and each new conflict resolved. These stories were a reflection of a new, shared understanding of the universe, one where the power of narrative had become a tool for unity, not division. They were the foundation for a future built on cooperation, mutual respect, and the collective desire to build a better galaxy for all sentient beings. In the years that followed, storytelling became a central part of galactic culture. It was no longer seen as a frivolous or irrelevant pastime, but as an essential component of the way civilizations communicated, understood one another, and worked together. As the different species of the galaxy shared their stories, they came to realize that they were not isolated, independent entities, but interconnected threads in a vast cosmic tapestry. The mythic narratives that had once been unique to humanity were now shared by all species, becoming the foundation for a new era of galactic peace. Through storytelling, species were able to create a shared narrative of the future, one in which they could work together, transcend their differences, and strive toward a common goal of peace, understanding, and unity. The power of myth, of imagination, and of emotional connection became the binding force that united the galaxy's diverse civilizations. In the end, storytelling proved that even in a universe full of technological marvels and scientific advancements, it was the power of shared stories, stories of struggle, hope, and the quest for meaning, that held the greatest potential to bring civilizations together and foster lasting peace. The spread of storytelling across the galaxy did not merely resurrect ancient myths. It also led to the creation of entirely new myths. These new myths were crucial in shaping the future of interspecies relations and fostering the ideals of cooperation, peace, and unity across the galaxy. As various civilizations began to embrace storytelling, they didn't simply adapt the old human myths to their cultures. They also wove new narratives that reflected the evolving dynamics of the galaxy. These newly created myths were not just stories from the past, but living, breathing narratives that helped shape the direction of the future. One of the key aspects of these new myths was their ability to reflect the current state of interspecies relationships. While the ancient myths of humanity spoke of struggles and triumphs that had taken place long ago, the new myths were reflective of the present. They were born out of the cooperation between previously isolated or hostile species, and they embodied the collective hopes, dreams, and struggles of these newly united beings. These myths became symbols of the potential for future unity and peace, and they were crafted in such a way that every species had a voice in their creation. In a galaxy once fractured by rivalries, the new myths painted a picture of a hopeful future where all sentient beings could work together towards shared goals. These new myths also helped to redefine the concept of heroism. In the past, heroes were often seen as individuals who overcame personal adversity or battled physical enemies. However, in the context of interspecies cooperation, heroism was reimagined as the ability to overcome cultural, emotional, and ideological differences in the pursuit of common good. The new heroes in these myths were not just individuals who fought for personal glory. They were those who worked selflessly for the betterment of the galaxy as a whole. These stories emphasize collaboration, understanding, and shared sacrifice, qualities that were essential for the peaceful coexistence of diverse civilizations. The creation of these new heroic narratives allowed different species to see themselves as active participants in a collective mission, rather than isolated beings acting solely in their own self-interest. Moreover, these new myths were dynamic. They evolved as the galaxy did. They were not static tales confined to a single moment in history, but were continuously shaped by the interactions, alliances, and conflicts of the present and future. As new challenges emerged, new stories were created to address them. For example, as the different species of the galaxy continued to explore deeper into space, new myths emerged around exploration, discovery, and the unknown. These stories helped to inspire future generations to continue pushing the boundaries of what was possible, encouraging them to dream big and work together to achieve the seemingly impossible. The new myths offered a sense of direction for the galaxy, guiding the actions of future generations and helping them understand their place in the grand narrative of the universe. The new myths also played a vital role in maintaining the peace that had been fostered through storytelling. As the galaxy evolved, it faced new threats and challenges, both external and internal. The creation of myths that celebrated unity and peace helped to provide a constant reminder of the values that had brought the galaxy together in the first place. These stories served as a touchstone for civilizations, reinforcing the importance of collaboration, empathy, and shared goals in the face of adversity. Whenever conflicts arose, the new myths could be invoked to remind species of the collective journey they were on, and of the sacrifices made in the past to achieve the peace they now enjoyed. In this way, the creation of new myths was an essential tool for maintaining harmony in the galaxy, as they provided both a cultural and emotional framework for resolving conflicts and moving forward together. The ability of these new myths to inspire future generations was another crucial aspect of their importance. By reflecting the values and ideals of the present and imagining a better future, these stories provided a blueprint for the next generation of galactic citizens. The myths were not merely about recounting past events. They were about inspiring action and providing a sense of purpose. In this way, they acted as both a mirror to the present and a guide to the future. The heroes in these new myths were not confined to the past, but were constantly reimagined to reflect the evolving nature of the galaxy. This allowed future generations to see themselves as part of an ongoing, ever-evolving story, where they had the power to shape the future through their actions. In conclusion, the creation of new myths in the galaxy was not just a cultural phenomenon. It was a fundamental part of the process of shaping a united, peaceful future. These myths provided a framework for understanding the present, a guide for the future, and a reminder of the shared values that united different species. They were living narratives that adapted to the changing times and served as a source of inspiration and strength for future generations. The new myths embodied the ideals of cooperation, unity, and peace, and they became the cornerstone of the galaxy's ongoing quest for a harmonious and interconnected future. Through storytelling, the galaxy found not only a way to understand its past, but also a powerful tool for shaping its future.